Welcome to the show, Grant. What's on the painting table at the moment? If you have a painting table at the moment.
The painting table. The painting table is some foam with my models from. Oh, I don't even remember the name of it. Death Watch Overkill. That's the name of the game. And those models been sitting there half painted for some time. As I was saying to you, but that's where I'm getting into these contrast paints you were talking about, and seeing what I can do with those. As it's a board game, I was trying to go for a quicker job, and I was getting through it quickly while I was working with it, and then a baby came along, and
Yeah, I know
I
that
had to
one.
reprioritize. Yes,
What age is the wee one then?
he's 19 months now. He's
18
yeah,
months,
doing
yeah.
just grand. How's yours?
Yeah, 10 months earlier than yours, so she's 9 months now. So she's just about out for as long as she was in. Although she did seem to be in for a while, so but I feels like she's been here forever. So hi, she'll quickly overtake me in miniature painting ability, I'm sure. So what, like, we're talking about the miniature painting there, like, and you're dabbling in the contrast paints up until now, or more traditionally, what's been your, like, talk me through the standard way that you'd go about painting a miniature?
Okay, so it was kind of the side of the box. We're going to maybe talk about Blood Bowl later, but all those are the old Games Workshop side of the box instructions, or maybe even the manual. You spray paint, put your base colors down. So prime base colors down, wash, dry brush, or ink back in the day. Wash and dry brush, and Bob's your uncle. A kind of mixture of. Then moved on to more recently when I was getting back into things. Oh, must be about 10 years ago now when I started getting back into painting, and that was when I started actually painting highlights on, and actually painting in well, not so much the lowlights, the shading, but yeah, that was, see, when you have to do a horse for the first time, and those big areas just will not dry brush well. That
Mm-hmm.
that took some work, but yeah, managed to do okay with that. And then, yeah, more recently I've been just zenithal highlighting, like as you were saying. Okay, doing the darker paint underneath. You skip when in your podcast you skip straight to the highlighting, but I guess you spray paint black underneath. Yeah,
Yeah, I did. I not
yeah.
mention that. Yeah, so it's the black, then the grey seed or the wraithbone on the top. Yeah.
Yeah, that's matched pretty much with those overkill models that are on a hiatus currently. Yes, that's exactly the sort of thing I'm trying, and then maybe I'll go back to the faces with some actual painted on highlights.
You were talking about the horses there in those big areas. I've found as well in my limited experience with the contrast paints, yeah, I struggle to put them over big areas. Like, it just doesn't. And again, that might just be because I'm rubbish, but it doesn't really look good over big areas.
No, I think that, and they do sell it in terms of getting over big Space Marine shoulder pads and things. It really, I think there's probably a way of doing it. It works in really weird ways. It doesn't settle like a wet paint would, even though that's exactly what it is, the wet paint. The magic seems to be in that medium that it's dissolved, that the pigment's dissolved in, and it pulls apart in weird ways. So there might be ways of doing it if you kind of you're not so much painting on as dragging it about and then seeing what it does. So maybe just kind of pulling it away from the raised areas and into the bits and bobs. I think they're probably just. I mean, I've seen people do it. You see the heavy metal painters managing to get good results out of that. So it must be doable. But I would. Yeah, probably going back with a closely matching, slightly lighter paint and actually having to paint those highlights on, which ain't great use. You want to just go in with one thick coat, as they say.
Yeah, are you a paint thinner? Do you put a bit of water in there? Do you use a palette in that?
Yeah, definitely. I've been using the wet palette for a wee while now.
Is
And
it a
that's
is it a bought one or did you make it?
Nah, it's just a cobble, frequently cobbling them together every other time I sit down because I can't have lost it under something.
A
So it's
peach box.
mm, like basically, yeah, the top of a margarine tub, sat on with one of the cellulose sponges and the cloth sponges, thinner ones, and the greaseproof paper wrapped around that, and then yeah, keeps your paints wet. You go through less paint because they don't just dry on your little palette. It doesn't so much work with wash because wash seems to draw up more moisture from the sponge through the paper, and it gets wet very quickly. I don't. Did I do that? I don't think I did that with the contrast because you don't want water in your contrast paint. You want medium. So I didn't
Hmm.
actually do it with that. I think I just got a little dimple palette, but then you go through so much of the stuff that it doesn't. You don't wind up with this stuff pooling at the bottom of your on the bottom of your palette anyway, because it's you're weakening it up off the out of the palette and onto your brush pretty darn quick anyway,
Hmm.
and then
Hmm.
you have to go back for another pot pretty soon.
Aye, they don't last as long, do they? Do you still do you keep up with Games Workshop like White Dwarf these days or that?
That pretty much has been my hobby for the last little while. Is yeah, keeping up with is going on Twitter and listen to podcasts like your own. Uh, um, I'm on the GW mailing list, just looking at the kind of the miniature porn. Really, that's what it's been. Um, I mean, part of it is that war games aren't quite my thing. I like uh, miniature board games is more my kind of thing when you're a little bit more limited in the collection and also in how the models move around. But
Hmm.
still
Hmm.
with a really nice presentation that you get from having minis on the board.
What are some of your favourite miniature board games?
Um, so going back, I mean, the first one was Hero Quest, which I don't know. I know our common acquaintance Colin has gotten the new version, which he's played a couple of games of. Yeah, looking back, thinking back, I don't know if I did. No, I did play when I was an adult. I did play Hero Quest. That's still 20 years ago. And yeah, it was fun in terms of the spectacle of putting the models on the board. I don't know if the rules were all that satisfying in the end. The most recent one I've gotten was, oh, and you should actually speak to this person. Mark McKinnon is, or to give his proper name in podcasting circles, is Mark McKinnon of Wreck and Ruin fame. Actually, he doesn't even get a surname. He's Mark of Wreck and Ruin fame. Uh, he's around all the gaming conventions in Scotland, or was when I would go to such things and when they existed. They're existing again, but I'm not going to them yet. But Wreck and Ruin is a game about it's basically like Mad Max on the battlefield on the tabletop. Um, Played on hexes when you got various different vehicles, and it's amazing what he's managed to achieve. I think it was he got the Kickstarter third time round. He got it kickstarted, um, and it's a game with nice components, good miniatures, which have all I've done to them is paint them in a base color and a dry brush over them, so they're very much plain pieces. But you can see all the details and the really nice minis, and it's a pretty madcap kind of beer and pretzels game. I was playing that a couple of weeks ago. Played with Colin actually, and yeah, that way found that good fun.
Is that what you like about the board game? The fact that you've got it all self-contained and you get it out and it's pretty clear what's going on.
Yeah. I played quite a lot of Warhammer, the eighth edition. Came in near the end of seventh. Yeah, although I'd been reading a few White Dwarfs when I was 12, but that was to get stuff for advanced Hero Quest, and you would see all the. I never really sort of prioritized that. it was kind of daunting, you know. You got to have like dozens of models. That would have been back in the day, in eighth edition, where I could actually afford an army. The model count had gotten bigger. I mean, Joe, who you've had on before, is one of my best pals, and he's got a Skaven army. That's hundreds of models in 28 mil. Amazing! It's an amazing spectacle to see on the battlefield. But the whole thing of using tape measures and having sort of a full range of movement. Actually, I mean, obviously, I play Warpack. Uh, um, I played Warpack a lot, Joe's game, and that is better. It knocks out a lot of the nonsense that you get from the rank and flank war games like Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Well, basically Warhammer Fantasy Battles, but yeah, I do still prefer that limit thing. You get out of the box, you put it down, you know where you can kind of see your options, and you can move this many squares, you can shoot that far, you can heal this much. It's quite I like that. It's quite nice.
Just to give us a picture then, like you talked about Hero Quest there, so was Hero Quest your gateway drug, and then did you kind of talked about getting back into things, so kind of talk us through your timeline if you like.
Sure, yeah. So fighting fantasy was the gateway drug.
Excellent.
The game books. The ones I actually preferred are the game books, the solo adventure game books. The ones I preferred were the ones with the running storyline, but the way people explain it, certainly the UK, I think in the US it would be choose your own adventure books. Here it was fighting fantasy. That was kind of what was called, and that was the original with the Steve Jackson and Ian Livingston. And yeah, those green spines. You would go into be John Menzies in Scotland and go to the kiddie section and the young adult section. It would be these walls of green spines with all the titles on. And be like, you just want all of them. And in my advanced years, I've gone on eBay and I now have all the green spines, every single one,
Brilliant.
even the one that costs like 80 quid.
If you're going to go in.
Yeah, that's one of the worst ones as well. Apparently, I'm still working my way through them. But
So
yeah,
are you playing them all like properly, if you like? Because I just used
no.
to win every fight and just read through them. Yeah.
Oh yeah, playing. But now when I do play them, I play them properly. I always did. I was always that kind of kid. Well, I tell myself I was. If I felt something was really unfair, then I would flick on back. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been to a talk by Ian Livingston, and I've seen lots of interviews with him as well. And he always he always said everyone uses the 5-finger bookmark, as he called it. He would see people
Yeah.
using it on the train in the 80s. So he's got no problem with us using it. We just call it continues. Unlimited continues, right?
I don't want to derail us from your hobby journey, but a quick question. Have you ever played, it's not a miniature game, but it's a board game, a box game, Escape the Dark Castle? You ever come across that? Because it totally reminds me of those books.
Yeah, I think that's deliberate on the designer's part for Escape the Dark Castle. Yeah,
Yeah,
actually, it's
I
weird.
really like it.
I played that 2-player, didn't like it, and then we played it with. I think it's only supposed to go up to 4 players, but we played it with 5 players anyway, and it was awesome.
Mhm.
I absolutely loved it. It was
Yeah,
really, really old school. The pen and ink art, just
yeah,
loved that.
aye.
Yeah,
Yeah, a
had
nice
that.
homage.
Absolutely, it was that kind of claustrophobic, dark feeling from going around a dark dungeon, and you're all like rat catcher and what the
Aye,
character classes.
nobody's impressive. Yeah, I'm the cook.
Yeah,
So was it fighting fantasy on Hero Quest then? Is that how it worked for
Hero
you?
Quest. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when I sort of roped in a pal and my brothers to go through the missions. Space Crusades is a similar story after that,
Mm.
and that was when I started painting, really, really badly with bad brushes and the Citadel paints. Oh, you're talking about the Citadel paints. If you do want to keep using the old Citadel paints, they are still making those, or somebody's still making those. It's a company called Coat d'Arms. I have no idea what language it's supposed to be in, but it's Coat, then D apostrophe Arms. And
Bretonnian.
yeah, Bretonnian, that's right. Yeah. Fake French. Uh, um, yeah, so they're still making those paints. If you have a particular color, I think they're still making all the blood red and everything like that. In not
Aye.
even the hexagon the hexagon pots that you used, but the pre-hexagon paints.
Yeah.
When it was just the cylindrical, cylindrical, if I can get the word out, paints, paint pots, like the really old school ones. They come with a nice rip off. Plastic
Hmm.
tab. So yeah, there's those that company's still making them. I think they were the company that made it in the first place.
I'll just
Um,
get something to smell. Just smell them all day.
yeah, apparently smell. No, I remember. In fact, I don't need to remember. I still have some of my 1992 paints sitting around, hundreds of them. Where were we? Yeah, that was where I started painting. I have some disastrous paint jobs sitting in a plastic box. I mean, as I was saying to you before we started recording this, I'm thinking as we're going through this, I'll talk about how should I question is should I keep all this stuff?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's
So you,
it's
you do still have everything then from your childhood, if you like.
no, I mean Hero Quest got so wrecked. I have it's all I've got is some miniatures. Okay, I mean that's not too bad. Space Crusade, it went out. It went out in the time in between, like we're like I was alluding to there, between kind of university and then so it's 2003 to 2010-ish, um, which was when I really wasn't playing at all. Um, and yeah, things went out. My after after Space Crusade and Blood Bowl, sorry, Space Crusade and Hero Quest, okay, are two boxes that I still have, and that's not a question. I will not get rid of them. I went for my 12th birthday. We went on a trip from Inverness to Edinburgh to visit, well, partly to visit Games Workshop, and that was, and also to visit yeah, there was a Star Trek exhibition on in Edinburgh. Uh, that was
Double
very cool.
geekery
Oh,
and
double geekery, all the geek. Yeah, I got like that was when I got Blood Bowl with expansions. I got Space Hulk with expansions. It was very formative trip. That uh, both games still have. I mean, Blood Bowl has had several editions since. So Space Hulk, but I didn't need any more editions of Space Hulk. It's so nicely contained. There were expansions which I've still not gotten round to. It's only been 30 years. I might get into playing with the expansion the expansion soon, that I've actually owned for all that time.
so did,
But
did did you own Space Hulk and Space Crusade then?
I did, yes, and to start with because yeah, it was the bling that got me for Space Crusade. All the different aliens and with no explanation as to why they're all fighting on the same side. uh, Whereas as I got older, I was like, oh no, Space Hulk is a better. There was only one type of alien. And
Hmm.
it was coming to get the Marines, and they realized as I played more and more, I was like, oh, this is the game. This is the really good game. The first box was just like, here's you either got one or two squads. That's the difference between your forces as the Marines. The Gene Stealers have lots of Gene Stealers. Hardly any of the missions are what you'd call balanced between the two sides. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter that it's asymmetrical. Um, that isn't important as long as it's fun. That first mission for the Marines. I don't have you played Space Hog?
No, I've never actually played it. No.
Yeah, well worth picking up. It would have to be eBay now or on the computer. It's yeah, no, it's yeah, that's a really good game. You got like the battle between the Terminators who are struggling to turn more than one corner in one turn, and the Gene Stealers going around, surrounding, lurking about before pouncing in a huge stream. Very thematic. The designer died recently, which was a shame to hear. But yeah, that is a game that just seemed to keep getting better as I got older. From there, it was on to Advanced Hero Quest. So yeah, those two big boxes stay in my collection. Advanced Hero Quest and Advanced Space Crusade came next, and yeah, Advanced Hero Quest played a few games of that with my pals. It was that it is good fun. The models that it came with just didn't support the actual game. It was really to get you to buy more metal models, and yeah, it couldn't really be done with that. I was a kid. I didn't have my own money and stuff. To sort of it would be birthday presents. There'd be other things to get. Advanced Space Crusade, that wasn't great. But
What
I
was
tried to,
advanced about it?
lots and lots of rules. Lots of rules. I'm going back in memory because this is a box that did go out. This is a box that did go out in the in between times. Again, kept some of the models. The original Tyranid warriors, which there isn't even an equivalent of now, I don't think, in the Warhammer collection. But you could throw down all your Space Crusade models. The problem was it was kind of a campaign system, so you'd start in the morning, and I know there was a lot of rules for like a 13-year-old. It was to handle. There was only I think it was actually supposed to be 14 to play it, and there was a lot to handle. I've read things later that say it wasn't that great. I think it was kind of a campaign game, but you had to have like cards on a table to go between the different missions. So yeah, it took me too long to play at least, and that was it. That was all the games I played at school. Still have all these plastic models from these boxes, kind of either nicely packed away in foam or sitting in a case. And that, yeah, I mean, I'd done a bit of role playing at that time. There was like the Advanced Fighting Fantasy that someone would run. We'd have a game of that was basically a GM playing a pen and pencil role playing game. But yeah, it was when I went to uni that I really started role playing. I got into the society at Edinburgh University, GIAS, who still run their convention every year. Compulsion, that's what it's called. And we're playing all sorts of different things because we're in the society. We played Star Wars was a long running campaign with the old D6 system, second edition and third edition Dungeons and Dragons. And yeah, this is where we started playing our long running what's it called? Rollmaster campaign. But you're all about the miniatures. I don't know if you want to hear too much about role playing.
Yeah, it's not something I know a huge amount about. I've heard Colin talking about this famous long running game.
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah, so it's been going how long?
Well, since uni, since 90. Well, I played my first game in it in first year, so I was 97, so only the quarter century.
Christ, your characters will be dying of old age before they get killed by any
Well,
actual baddies.
I was 3 years younger than my character when I started. I'm now probably like I'm probably about at least 20 years older. Am I?
Just like
Coming on 20 years older. He's a young boy. Is Jeffrey Hardonia? I didn't pick the surname. that was our. So I want to be a knight called Jeffrey, and then Matt says, "Okay, his name's Hardonius." Huh?
excellent.
Do you have a cousin called Bigasticus?
How many of you is there in the party then?
Four-man party. That's Colin, Joe, and David, and me.
And
I'm the
they'll
leader.
just be like 4 old men now because they've been going about that much. Their knees will be done in, all that walking.
All the battling seem to have handled like several battles to the death in sort of a 24-hour period, and then do it again tomorrow.
So during those uni days, was that when you kind of were out of the miniature game scene, or when did that gap happen?
Yeah, and for that, yeah, that would kind of be it, and then it would be like I would get together with my brother. Really, that'd be it. We'd play maybe one of my pals every now and then. If I was going to a brother's, I'd bring along Blood Bowl Space Hulk. We play Blood Bowl and Space Hulk, or they'd be sitting at, or we're both at uni or both away from home. Then we'd go home to Inverness and we'd play Blood Bowl and Space Hulk. Those two boxes would come out again and again. Um, like there was nothing going on in gaming apart from that, and that suited us just fine. Then in about 2010, I started playing Warhammer. I had some money. I had a nice job, and my pals were all kind of getting their collections together. And yeah, I picked up a Dark Elf army. Um, yeah, the spectacle of getting 100 models on the table is something pretty awesome. Uh, it really is just nice to see when I first got on a painted force on the table. It's just something to kind of behold and be proud of. And I don't know if I were just to paint minis, it's a nice thing to do. But usually, what's the first thing you do when you paint a miniature when it's all done?
I suppose nowadays it's take a picture, isn't it?
Yeah, and then it goes in a box, doesn't it?
Yeah, aye, goes in a wee case, or yeah, aye,
Yeah,
put it
sits in
away.
foam.
Yeah.
It's when you get. I mean, uh, a couple of pals have like nice glass cases to put things in. I still have plans for one in my house, but generally it just goes away, and it would look nice in the case, but when it really looks nice is in the terrain, and
Mm.
that's when you're playing a game. Uh, that's when you get to really showcase, and you put up against someone else's army sitting across the field. You've got uh, lovely hills and buildings for them to be in amongst, and it's kind of sort of a diorama that plays itself out, and that's the really cool thing about war games. Then I got a chaos army after that, so a chaos warriors army, and now I've got now I'm not doing so much of the big wargaming. I've got a few enormous under bed boxes now sitting in the loft. I
Just,
don't know.
taking us back there, like, so you had that gap away, and then suddenly
Mm.
you decide I'm going to get into Warhammer, and you go and buy an army. Like, talk me through first the thought process that led you to making that decision, and then the experience. Did you go to like the shop and go in and buy it all there? Like, how did that sort of all pan out?
Yeah, okay. All my friends were doing it. That was the thing, and
That's drugs, isn't it, or
yeah, peer pressure.
alcohol? Yeah.
All my friends were doing it, and yeah, I had the money to actually buy 100 odd models. Um, yeah, I had a group of people going to do. Oh, that was it. The catalyst was we're starting a campaign. We're playing a campaign, and Joe of Prince of Darkness games fame is I put together these rules. They're based on his role playing game about boxing called Contenders, and he called this rule set Pretenders. So we played. You'd play rounds of the game, and sometimes you'd fight a battle. Sometimes you would kind of essentially have a scene, and we kind of wrote up these scenes we would have. So you'd be kind of interacting with other characters, going on missions, just describing what you did, and someone would draw some cards to tell you whether you're successful or not in drumming up more resources or um, establishing characters in your army, which is so we're sort of mixing up the role playing and the miniature wargaming there. So it's a super narrative. It wasn't like one of these campaigns where you get a map. It was completely narrative. So yeah, I think you might be able to find those rules in the Prince of Darkness games website if that's still up and running. I think I'll have a look. But yeah, that was a really good way into it. I played a few campaigns with that as we were building up our armies. You see, there's that sort of connection to the role playing again, and then I mean, Warhammer died, which they did tell us was what's going to happen. Nobody believed them. They said the
Yeah,
world
because
is going to end, gods will die, and then everyone's like, "Yeah, that's just movie trailer speak," and they
yeah,
did it.
and it did. Yeah, and you were obviously, because see, I wasn't around then. That was during my gap period, so I didn't know. But yeah, so you were actively playing it at that point, and then the whole thing got blown up.
Yeah, hadn't been long since I'd been to Warhammer World for the 8th edition tournament. Um, yeah, I know there was a lot of doomsaying about Age of Sigmar, and it was a terrible release. It was awful. I remember just downloading the rules, free rules. Great, let's see how it works. Oh, and I've got my Dark Elf Army book for free. Right, where are the points values? There are none. And it's like, okay, well, how do I know how to put an army together? It's like, have a conversation with your opponent. Hmm. Now, it's probably better for someone with experience like myself who knows that there should be hundreds of Skavens on a battlefield, so you can get a rough idea there. But even, or very few Chaos Warriors because they're big and mean, so you have fewer of them on the battlefield. But you're kind of like designing half the game there. It's not that I'm looking for, like I said, with Space Hulk, where you've got a you can have an asymmetrical game that can still be fun, but you don't want to spend, when you're playing with hundreds of miniatures, it's physically difficult to get it get you and your partner to the same table, put all the stuff on the table, um, work out the rules of this new game, play it, then realize this is no fun because one side is completely stomping over the other, and then it's over. You spent half an hour getting the game set up and work out the rules. 20 minutes playing the squash match, and then it'll take me. It was not really enough time to start again, so we'll put it away again. You can't really do that with miniatures game. I think you need some sort of rough guidelines.
So when you were when you bought your first army, when you came back, and then when you were buying stuff up to the point where they blew the world up, were you going into the shop to buy stuff, or were you ordering it online, or what?
Actually, yeah, sorry, I that was a previous question which I apparently went off on a tangent from. Yeah, so I did go into the shop for a few things. When I was up in Aberdeen. Yeah, I went into the shop and yeah, really friendly. Kind of help you get from them. I did do a lot of eBaying. For starting a whole army, for starting a whole army, you want to cut corners and save money when you can. So there's a lot of secondhand stuff, a lot of Dettol used to get stuff off of my plastic miniatures. Never use Dettol on resin. I've got a floppy hero miniature somewhere. It's sort of sitting somewhere. No, I binned it because I completely destroyed it with Dettol. But it works fine with plastic. A lot of stuff that was painted over because it wasn't destroyed by some kid splotting paint straight out of the pot onto it. But yeah, no, eBay's your friend there. And yeah, but I went to the shops for some individual things, especially when I was looking for advice.
I just kind of wonder how the shops must have been when the whole Warhammer end times happened. What it must have
Oh
been
yeah,
like for the poor folk that worked in the shop, because obviously they didn't make the decision, but they would have had to be positive about it, and a lot of
oh,
them
here's
probably didn't.
yeah. I think I might have told a bit of the story just now though about that because it was older people playing Warhammer Fantasy Battle. I think I think and there are folks who are savvy enough to go in the second-hand market and get stuff. And 40k was most of their business.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, so
So you think the
on the
folk hanging about the shop would have been just younger folk who didn't care as much about what happened to Warhammer?
I think is I think when you go when I went in, you would really only see 40k happening really. Um, it's actually possible to play a game with a small number of models of 40k, I guess. Um, two ranks, like one rank of guys standing 5x1, and then a couple of more standing 2x1 grids. You don't get that spectacle on the table, and you got complicated rules of how to move around. Yeah, I don't miss it. I'll be perfectly honest. The whole wheeling thing, where everyone has, because you have to keep everybody in grids. Anyway, sorry, I'm digressing a bit, but I think it was an older person. It was an older person game. Was Warhammer Fantasy Battle, especially towards the end, and I don't know if they'd really have to field that many questions from the people who were in the store. I don't think Games Workshop actually supported Warhammer Fantasy Battle. I think there was one army book in the first 2 years of the last edition coming out. 40k had. I've read a few good 40k novels that are really fun. The fantasy novels are all written like an army book. Like they're all in. There's no quotation marks in in a lot of the books. So, like, the story of Nagash is entirely told as a sort of the voice of God. You don't actually hear anyone speak. You just sort of described what's happened, like in scripture. There's no models, no army releases in the first couple of years. You're just waiting for what was going on. So you had like dwarves and Colin had dwarves and Joe had wood elves, and they hadn't had an army book since 6th edition, and that went on and on till near the end of 7th. Near the end of 8th. So, all of this is, I don't think their heart was in it, to be perfectly honest. So, but now there's this new edition coming out, and that's interesting. I don't think
what do you make of that?
You had an episode of this, didn't you? Somebody
We've
knows
talked
a lot
about it a
more
few
than I
times.
would. Yeah, it's what are you going to need? I mean, the models are more expensive than ever now. Even accounting for inflation, and they won't do the thing. That's what your guest said, wasn't it? That it'd be really good to have like monopose, just quick things out of the bag, good to go. Which is what you need, and they said they won't put it in the smaller models. They could do smaller models. 28mm they started using 28mm when plastic miniatures looked like dog poo, whereas now you can fit so much detail on it. You could put more in a 15mm miniature than you could in the olden days in a 28mm miniature. So it would seem logical to put it down. So it seemed logical to go that way, but they're not doing that. So it's going to cost. I mean, it's costing like £6 a miniature? Is that about the minimum? Like £4 a miniature at least for like a man-sized mini? And you're going to
I don't buy their stuff, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be £500 in basic infantry if you're going to have 100 models on the table.
What's your opinion on the modern GW aesthetic of the miniatures?
I got the first box set for Age of Sigmar, and I was looking at how I would go about paint. Actually, I actually did paint some Stormcast Eternals, the poster boys of the game, and I painted the ones for Shadespire, the Warhammer Underworlds game, the first box. And the iconography they have on them is they have hammers on them because they're the hammers of Sigmar. They got lions on them. Sorry, those are not lions. They're dragon designs on them. Okay, and they got the twin-tailed comet on them as well. It's very, very busy. You're not going to use it for something else. It's be very difficult to sort of stick that in the Frostgrave because you just point at going, that's Stormcast Eternal. It's got 3 different types of iconography on it, so it's hard to it takes a while to paint as well. So I like it. It looks very stylish. I think in terms of hero models, great to paint. To get your rank and file on for a slightly bigger game is going to be a lot of effort. For when you stand 3 feet away from it, is going to be just shapes and colors, and you're not going to see all the little all these little things that you would do when you take a picture of a miniature. Looks different from doing the 3 feet test where you're standing back and see how good does this army look. Some of the artwork is amazing, heavy metal awesomeness, and yeah, like I say, them. So the miniatures and the art, they're great. You would probably only play Warhammer with them because they're distinct, and that's for legal reasons, so they can own their intellectual property, and why not get credit for things that are yours. Yeah, it's just a shame that I wouldn't be you're struggling to pick that up to do something else with. And if I'm painting a miniature, I'd like to have it there for if I want to go with Frostgrave or stick it into Dungeon Saga, or even to have something that isn't Warhammer to play with Warpack.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're kind of trying to design your own thing. Big guys in armor, maybe they're not Chaos Warriors, but they've all got the Chaos symbols just draped in all these different symbols. Yeah, good in itself, but hard to use elsewhere. Would be my summation of that.
Couple of points I definitely wanted us to hit on. Well, first and foremost, we've talked a wee bit about painting. You mentioned before we started recording that you had some feedback for me on what I talked about on my last episode.
Oh, yes.
Basically, me breaking paints. So, enlighten me, please, Grant.
I've already said about coat d'arms. You can get those paints if you want them. There are a couple of points where, I've broken army painter sprays before as well, and I did actually swear off them, but then I tried them again because I wanted to use up the ones I had. Yeah, you get this thing where they go quite. You can get like a furry finish, which ruins your miniature. The thing is with army painter is it says on the box, and people don't believe them. But it does say on the tin you've got to spray like really close up. Now that doesn't stop your spray from getting clogged. And if you, it's kind of a thing of as soon as you see that thing getting clogged, you just got to chuck that cap away and it's gone. But then you said it happened with the second one, and then yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, I can't argue with that. I wouldn't, if I'd had that experience, I wouldn't go with it again. Warming up your cans helps. I wouldn't. Here's the knowing the physics of gases like I do as a physics graduate. I would definitely consult the maximum temperature on side of the can and not exceed that. So we have exploding gases, exploding cans. But more recently, I've put army painter spray cans in a warm sink of water, and that's made things flow very well. And so for years after I had those problems with the cans, that did actually work. Or just go to Halfords for massive cans of paint. Wouldn't do that. They're quite matte finish on the Halfords primers, so that probably wouldn't work very well with the contrast paints. But you get a nice smooth finish off of the official ones. So I have used the official primers for contrast. Uses contrast primers. That's what you call them, contrast primers. So I've used those and they've worked well. Another thing with the do you see why those paint pots, the new GW paint pots, are that shape?
No, I don't know.
They're shaped like bolter rounds. So rather than being there to be good for carrying paints, like you said, as we've been making containers to carry liquids for centuries. This is again using their IP. They're made to look like rounds that go into a Space Marines bolter.
There you go.
Yeah. But one trick, and it works with other brands of paints as well. Within the even perhaps a little bit with those hex pots. Get a little bit of blue tack, which the hobbyist friends, and stick it at the back so that the paint leans forward towards you when you open it up. And
Mm-hmm.
then it tends to drip a little bit more into the pot rather than it's out the back that's the problem, isn't it? That little
Mm-hmm.
kind
Yeah.
of lip that sits inside then drips straight down the back of your pot, especially if you're using one of the base paints. Is that what they're calling them? Yeah, the base paints. Then that
Mm-hmm.
stuff dries hella quick, fills it in.
Yeah.
Yeah, fills in the gap that the lid's supposed to go into, leaves an air hole, dries out your paints inside, and it's an almighty mess. No, it's not. They're not the best design, but that just honestly a little bit of blue tack will help you out there because the paints are very nice. I'm annoyed that they discontinued all those colors, which I was using to paint hundreds of miniatures, and maybe wanted to paint a dozen more, and I
Mm-hmm.
had to reformulate my all my painting recipes. Um, but they are nice. I've gotten a few since I got over my rage, and yeah, they're really good for strong, vivid colors. Much more than Vallejo, who I've also used.
Yeah, I'll report back on. I'll try some of these wee tips, and maybe in a couple of episodes' time, I'll be able to talk about how I've become a master painter. I've got myself an Instagram and loads of followers. In fact, I'm on TikTok. I'm on TikTok showing miniatures, really good painted miniatures that I've
Where
stolen.
all the cool miniature painters are going.
Yeah.
Do you do we make them
Um,
make your miniatures do a wee dance?
yeah, cat face on them, just a like a beastman with a cat face. um, One of the other things, Grant, that we just wanted to kind of touch on was talking about like because we were chatting again before we started recording about me finding that Space Crusade Commodore game.
Hmm.
So like if you've got loads of stuff that you've played over the years, do you have a system for like what you keep and what you give away or what you sell?
I don't know. Well, basically, if I think I'm never going to play this, I would. Yeah, if I think I'm never going to play with this, then it goes. Which I've done with very few things. I did. Oh, that was. I played a wee bit of Dreadball off of Mantic Games for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't back the Kickstarter, but I bought it afterwards, and I was fine, but I realised it was just really it wasn't as fast as it kind of pretended to be, and you had to move the referee every single turn. It was just just a lot of things about it were fiddly. I got annoyed with it, and I sold my only painted models that I've ever sold. I made a profit, so it must be okay. I actually added to the value rather than somebody wanting to buy them to strip
To
it
strip
straight
them,
away.
yeah.
Yeah. Those are the only ones. Those are the only miniatures I've ever sold. Were a couple of Dreadball teams. Everything else I'm keeping a hold of, and it's currently um, up in the loft. I'm thinking, will I use this? Will I not use it? A lot of it is stuff that I could use for whatever game. Like I said, I have used Chaos Warriors in pull them out for Dungeon Saga, for Frostgrave. I really want to. You've piqued my interest even more in Rangers of Shadow Deep. Play Shadow Deep. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rangers
I'm
Shadow
really
Deep.
enjoying those episodes with yourself and Robert. Um, but yes, I want to. Yeah, yeah. I'm just thinking. Well, when would you get rid of stuff? Do you have stuff that you do you have like a collection? You do have a collection of things from the olden days, like your Krell and all this. Is there anything you'd want to? When do you get rid of stuff?
Well,
Like I
a
guess
lot.
you're not going to pick up a Commodore 64 again.
Yeah, those days are gone. I guess I'd get an emulator or something if
Yeah,
I ever wanted to. Um, but yeah, a lot of the stuff just vanished for me. So I had Warhammer
mm.
third edition. Is third edition the Goblins and the High Elves? Is that right? Is that third
That was
edition?
really before my time.
Aye. Well, that I had the box of that. I had 40k. Blood Bowl, they all, God knows where all they went. And then, but I did find some stuff. But then stupidly, like when I got back into the hobby, I found all my old Battlemaster stuff, and I was like, I'm never going to use this. And I sold it, and I kind of regret that because, there was some, they were all monopos and that, but I kept like one or two of them and enjoyed painting them. So I wish I'd kept more of that.
Yeah, it's
sold
that
it all.
fear of missing out when it's stuff you already have. It's
Yeah.
difficult because I've got all these armies, and I will definitely be playing some Warpack with them. But like some of the stuff I did for my Dark Elves, I didn't. That's the first army I painted, and I don't kind of enjoy looking at them. Some of them were like miniatures that I should have stripped and didn't, or they had like bits of glue on it. I should have just chucked them out. Somebody just did a bad job with the plastic cement. It's like I don't enjoy looking at these, so. Is it worth really kind of having them around? Like, would you have played Did you have enough Battle Masters to play with?
Back in the day, like when I was wee, I had, we played it a lot. Potentially not totally properly, but we played it a lot.
Something I haven't mentioned from my journey in gaming is all these games. I mean, certainly when I was at school, I was never playing. We got the rules wrong all the time.
We'd play on my pal's bedroom floor. That's probably where I got the name for the website. But we'd you're just set up on the carpet. Basically, almost nothing is painted, and it was like if it was 40k, it was all those cardboard buildings. And I don't think, we'd always deploy so far apart from each other, and it looked really cool, and that was where all the satisfaction was. And I think we'd start gradually moving the two armies together, but we'd never even make it, like they would never engage in combat, and we'd be like, we're going out for a game of football. And then when you come back in, his mum's like, tidy that up. So rarely, it was a very pacifist style
sort of taken to the extreme what I was saying there about it's great to see the armies on the field.
Yeah,
so just, all they're doing is kind of arriving, kind of preening, doing a parade across from each other.
Doing the haka like the New Zealand rugby team, they got up to the opponents and did a wee dance, and then that was
it. Went off for a cup of tea. Brilliant.
Big thanks to Grant there. Always good to get a fellow Albioner on the show. Is that what you'd call them? Albioner. He's actually from Nagaroth though, isn't he? Anyway, just a quick note before you head off back to one of those 40k list building podcasts I know you like to listen to. On the last episode, I mentioned I'm doing a wee giveaway of the Beasts of Chaos and Hordes of Chaos army books from 6th edition. It's open to anyone who lives in or has a postal address in the UK, and all you need to do to enter is leave a review of this podcast on your listening app of choice or on Podchaser, and then email me a screenshot of it to hello@bedroombattlefields.com. At the moment, 2 lovely people have entered, and if it stays that way till the end of May 2022, they'll be getting a book each. If you want to throw your hat in the ring, you know what to do. Come on, a wee review for your pal here. Right, that's it for now. Thanks again for listening, and we'll speak again on the next one.